I gave my sister my liver twice before I turned 18. Then her boyfriend asked one question that made her lose everything. I gave my sister my organs before I even turned 18. Last week, her boyfriend asked one question. Just one. And it made her lose everything. When I was 14 years old, my older sister Sloane mixed half a bottle of vodka with a fistful of painkillers because some guy at a party told her it would hit faster. Whatever that combination did to her liver, it did it fast. In less than 48 hours, everything changed. Her skin turned yellow first, then the whites of her eyes followed. She started throwing up blood on the bathroom tile, shaking so hard she could barely breathe, and my parents drove her to the hospital doing 90 the whole way. I remember sitting in the waiting room, numb and terrified, when my mom pulled me into the hallway. She grabbed both of my hands like she was trying to anchor herself through me. "Gabriel," she said, "your sister needs part of your liver." I stared at her. "She needs what?" "You're the only match." My whole body went cold. "You want to cut me open?" "Livers grow back," she said quickly, like she had rehearsed it. "It's one surgery. That's it. You'd be saving her life." "I don't want to have surgery," I said. "I'm scared." My mom's grip tightened around my hands. "Your sister is dying, Gabriel. Do you understand that? She is dying, and you can save her." "But I don't want them to cut into me. What if something goes wrong? What if I die?" "You won't die. The doctor said it's safe. They also said Sloane might not survive. How is any of this safe?" My mother's face hardened in a way I had seen before, but never aimed at me with that much force. "Your sister is lying in that room fighting for her life because of one stupid mistake. One mistake, and you're standing here worried about yourself?" I started crying. I could not help it. I was 14 years old, and my own mother was looking at me like I was a monster because I did not want someone to slice me open. "I'm not worried about myself," I said. "I'm just scared." "Then be scared and do it anyway," she said. "That's what family does." My dad walked over from Sloane's room. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. "I know this is scary, but Sloane is running out of time. The transplant list is too long. She needs you." "Why can't you do it?" I asked. "Or Mom?" "We already got tested," he said. "We're not matches. It has to be you." I should have known. I should have known the second they pulled me into that hallway that I did not really have a choice. That was how it always worked in my family. Sloane needed something, and I was expected to hand it over. When Sloane wanted my birthday moved because it landed on the same weekend as her dance recital, we moved it. When Sloane got caught copying a final and needed someone to say they had let her see their paper, my parents looked at me. I always came second. That was just how it was. "What about wrestling?" I asked quietly. "I have the state tournament next month. Coach said there would be scouts there. College scouts." I told them that if I wrestled like I had at districts, I could get recruited early. I told them I actually had a shot. I told them this was my chance to prove everything I had been working toward. My mom made a sound in her throat. "Wrestling? Your sister might die, and you're worried about wrestling?" My dad looked at me with tired eyes. "The doctor said you would need about 6 weeks to recover. You might miss this year's tournament, but there's always next year. One surgery, and this is all over. Your sister gets better. You heal up. Everything goes back to normal. We will never ask you to do anything like this again." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe this was a one-time thing. I wanted to believe I could save my sister, go back to my normal life, wrestle again, and never think about it after that. "You promise?" I asked. "Just this once?" My dad pulled me tighter into the hug. "I promise, son. It only has to happen once." My mom stepped closer and placed her hand on my back. For the first time since that conversation started, her voice softened. "You're our Gabriel," she said. "You were sent to us to save this family. That's why we named you what we did." I did not know what to say to that. I did not feel like a guardian angel. I felt like a scared 14-year-old boy who wanted his life and his body to still belong to him. But Sloane was dying. My big sister, the girl who taught me to ride a bike in the driveway when I was 5, the girl who used to sneak me into the good seats at her recitals so I could watch, the girl who told me I was going to wrestle in the Olympics someday, and she would be screaming louder than anyone in the building. She was not perfect. She got more than me, and she knew it. Sometimes she even rubbed it in. But she was still my sister. I could not let her die. Not when I had the power to save her. "Okay," I said. The word came out small and shaky. "I'll do it." My mother's whole body relaxed. My father squeezed me tighter. "Thank you, Gabriel," he whispered into my hair. "Thank you so much. You're saving our family." The next few hours were a blur of doctors, nurses, forms, signatures, explanations, risks, percentages, recovery times, and possible complications I barely understood. They kept talking, but all I could focus on was the fear pounding in my chest. Before they wheeled me into surgery, My dad held my hand. "We love you so much, Gabriel," he said. "We'll be right here when you wake up. You and Sloan are both going to be fine." My mom kissed my forehead. "You're so brave," she said. "Your sister is so lucky to have you." I wanted to say something back, but the anesthesia was already dragging me under. The last thing I remember thinking was that this was the hardest thing I would ever do. I thought nothing in my life would ever be this scary again. I was wrong. That surgery was just the beginning. Recovery was supposed to take 6 weeks. It took 8. The incision got infected during week 3, and I spent 4 extra days in the hospital, hooked up to IV antibiotics, while my parents split their time between my room and Sloan's. Except they did not really split it. They would pop in to check on me for maybe 10 minutes. They would ask how I was feeling, tell me I was being so brave, and then disappear back to Sloan's side for hours. I could hear them laughing down the hall. I could hear Sloan's friends coming to visit with balloons and cards and a giant stuffed bear that almost would not fit through the door. My wrestling team sent me one card. Coach signed it. "Get well soon. See you on the mat." That was it. The state tournament happened while I was still in my hospital bed. I watched it on my phone with the volume turned low so I would not bother anyone. My teammate Cole won my weight class, the bracket I had been training for all year, the one coach said I had the best shot at. I watched Cole get his hand raised in the center of the circle. I watched the scouts in the stands writing things down, and I knew I had just lost something I was never getting back. Cole's photo was in the local sports section the next morning. Local star draws college interest. That was supposed to be me. That was supposed to be my headline. But instead, I was lying in a hospital bed with staples in my stomach because my sister decided to play chemistry experiment with vodka and pills. When I finally got discharged, Coach came by the house. He sat on the edge of my bed and told me not to worry. "You'll come back stronger," he said. "Athletes bounce back from setbacks all the time. Next year's tournament will be yours." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But when I finally got cleared to train again 3 months later, something was wrong. I was slower off the whistle. Not by much, just a beat here and there. But in wrestling, a beat can be the whole match. Coach had me doing extra drills, extra conditioning, extra everything. Nothing worked. My body just did not move the same way anymore. The scar tissue pulled when I bridged. My core strength was gone. I would gas out halfway through rounds that used to be nothing. By the time the next season started, I was not the kid scouts came to see anymore. I was not even the best wrestler in the room. The recruiters who had been watching me had moved on to other guys. Coach stopped talking about college. He stopped talking about the Olympics. He just clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're doing great, Gabriel. Keep working hard." But I could see it in his eyes. He did not believe in me anymore. Nobody did. Meanwhile, Sloan was thriving. Her recovery was perfect. Textbook. Within 4 months, she was back to her normal life like nothing had ever happened. Back to her friends, back to parties, back to everything. I found out she was drinking again 6 months after the surgery. I was doing homework in my room when I heard her stumble through the front door at 2 a.m. I opened my door, and there she was, leaning against the wall, reeking of tequila. "What are you doing?" I asked her. She laughed. "Relax, little brother. I'm fine." "You almost died because of drinking," I said. "The doctor said you can't do this anymore. Your liver can't handle it." She rolled her eyes at me. Actually rolled her eyes, like I was the one being dramatic. "The doctor said I need to be careful," she said. "I'm being careful. A few drinks isn't going to kill me." "Sloan, I gave you part of my liver," I said. "Do you understand that? I let them cut me open so you could live, and you're just going to wreck it again?" She pushed herself off the wall and looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. Casual cruelty. It made me take a step back. "So what if I do?" she said. "Livers regenerate. That's what they told you, right? That's the whole point. What is that supposed to mean?" She smiled. Not a nice smile, not even a drunk smile. A smile that said she knew something I did not. "It means if I mess up again, Mom and Dad will just make you fix it," she said. "That's literally your job, Gabriel. You're the spare parts. You're the backup plan. That's why they had you." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "That's not true." "Sure it is. Why do you think they named you Gabriel? The Guardian? You're supposed to save me. That's your whole purpose. So stop worrying about what I do with my body, because we both know you'll be there to fix it when I need you." She pushed past me into her room and slammed the door. I stood in the hallway for a long time, trying to convince myself she was just drunk. Just being mean, because she was wasted. She did not really believe what she said. She could not. The next morning, I told my parents what happened. I told them Sloan was drinking again. I told them what she said about me being the backup plan. My mom sighed like I was exhausting her. "Gabriel, your sister has been through a lot. She's allowed to blow off some steam." She's not blowing off steam, I said. She's destroying the liver I gave her. My dad put his hand on my shoulder. Sloane knows her limits. She is not going to do anything stupid, and you need to stop being so dramatic about this. The doctor said she could have an occasional drink as long as she's careful. She wasn't careful, I said. She was wasted. One night doesn't mean anything. Let it go. I could not believe what I was hearing. What about what she said? About me being spare parts? My mom's expression hardened. She was drunk. She didn't mean it. And honestly, Gabriel, this victim mentality is not a good look on you. You did a wonderful thing for your sister. Be proud of that instead of holding it over everyone's heads. I opened my mouth to argue, but the look on her face stopped me. It was the same look she had given me in the hospital hallway. The look that said I was selfish for having feelings. The look that said my only job was to sacrifice and smile. I went to my room and did not come out for the rest of the day. A few weeks later, my parents sat me down for a family talk. For one stupid hopeful second, I thought maybe they were finally going to deal with Sloane's drinking. Maybe they had heard me after all. Instead, my dad cleared his throat and said, "We need to talk about your college fund." My college fund? The one my grandparents had started the day I was born. The one they had been adding to every birthday and every Christmas for 14 years. The one that was supposed to pay for my future. What about it? I asked. My parents traded a look. Sloane's medical bills were significant, my mom said. The insurance didn't cover everything. We had to make some difficult decisions. I felt the blood drain from my face. What kind of decisions? We used your college fund to cover the rest. The room tilted. You took my college money for her bills? It was necessary, my dad said. Sloane needed specialized care. The alternative was letting her suffer. But that was my money. Grandma and Grandpa gave that to me. They gave it to us to hold for you, my mom corrected. And we made a judgment call. When you're older, you'll understand that sometimes parents have to make hard choices. What about Sloane's college fund? I asked. Did you use that too? Silence. My mother looked at the floor. My father looked at the wall. Neither of them looked at me. Sloane's fund is for Sloane, my mom finally said. She's going to need it. You know how competitive things are out there. So she gets to keep her money, but I have to lose mine because of bills from her mistake? It wasn't a mistake, my dad said sharply. It was an accident, and we are not going to punish Sloane for something she didn't mean to do. But you'll punish me for it, I said. I'm the one who gave her my liver, and I'm the one who loses everything. My mother stood up. This conversation is over. The decision has been made. If you want to go to college, you'll do what everyone else does and apply for scholarships. You're a smart kid. You'll figure it out. She walked out of the room. My dad followed her. I sat on the couch alone, trying to understand what had just happened. My wrestling career was gone. My college fund was gone. My sister was back to drinking like nothing had changed. And my parents thought I was being dramatic for being upset about any of it. I was 15 years old, and I was already learning the most important lesson of my life. In that family, I did not exist as a person. I existed as a resource, and resources do not get to have feelings. 3 years passed. I turned 17. Sloane turned 20. In those 3 years, I watched my sister systematically destroy everything I had given her. She did not just drink occasionally, the way my parents claimed. She drank constantly, parties every weekend, wine bottles in the recycling, a flask in her bag that she barely tried to hide and my parents pretended not to see. Twice, I found her passed out on the bathroom floor. Both times, my parents blamed stress. She's in college now, my mom said. Everyone drinks in college. She's just being a normal young adult. Normal young adults did not almost die from liver failure at 17. Normal young adults did not have their brother's organs inside them. But I had stopped trying to argue. Every time I brought up Sloane's drinking, my parents looked at me like I was jealous, like I was trying to sabotage my sister instead of save her. So I focused on my own life. I joined every club I could find, student council, debate, academic team, anything that might help. If I could not get recruited for wrestling, I would make myself impressive some other way. I applied for scholarships obsessively. Need-based scholarships, merit-based scholarships, essay contests, anything. I worked a part-time job at a hardware store to save money for applications. I was determined to build a future for myself, even if my family had already decided I did not deserve one. And then my parents showed up at my school. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the library working on a scholarship essay when the vice principal came to get me. "Your parents are in the office," she said. "They say it's a family emergency." I knew before she even finished the sentence. I knew. I walked to the front office on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. My mother was sitting in one of the plastic chairs with her face in her hands. My father was pacing by the window. They both looked up when I walked in. "It's Sloane," my dad said. "Her liver is failing again." I stood in the doorway and waited to feel something. Surprise, sadness, fear. But all I felt was tired. I was so tired. The doctor said the damage is extensive, my mom continued. Her voice was shaking. Apparently, she's been drinking more than we realized. Much more. Her liver can't keep up anymore. I told you, I said quietly. For 3 years I told you she was drinking too much, and you said I was being dramatic. This is not the time for I told you so, my dad snapped. Your sister is in the hospital. She might die. She might die because you let her drink herself to death after I gave her part of my liver. My mother stood up. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. We need you to do it again. No. The word came out before I could stop it. Clear, firm, final. Both of my parents stared at me like I had spoken a foreign language. No? My mom repeated. Gabriel, your sister is dying. I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't do this again. My dad stepped toward me. Can't or won't? Both. You promised me it would only happen once, I said. You looked me in the eyes and promised. Circumstances changed, he said. Sometimes promises have to be broken when lives are at stake. Her life is at stake because of choices she made, because you let her make them, because every time I tried to warn you, you told me to shut up and stop being jealous. My mother's face twisted. So, you're going to let your sister die to prove a point? I'm not letting her die. I'm just not killing myself to save her again. Killing yourself? My dad said with a short laugh that had no humor in it. Don't be dramatic. You survived the first surgery just fine. I did not survive just fine. I was in the hospital for 8 weeks. I got an infection. I lost my wrestling career. I lost my college fund. I lost 3 years of my life recovering from what you asked me to do. And your sister would have lost her actual life if you hadn't done it? My mother shot back. That's the trade. That's what family means. I looked at my mother. At the woman who was supposed to love me unconditionally. At the woman who was looking at me like I was a monster because I did not want to be cut open again. No, I said. My mother stepped closer until she was right in my face. If Sloan dies because you refuse to help, you will never be welcome in this family again. Do you understand me? You will be dead to us. Honey, my father said quietly, that's enough. It is not enough until he agrees, she said. Until he stops acting like a selfish little brat and does what needs to be done. I should have walked out. I should have gone back to my scholarship essay and let them figure out their own mess. But then Sloan herself showed up. She pushed through the office door looking gray and gaunt, and nothing like the healthy sister who had mocked me in the hallway 3 years before. Someone must have told her where we were. Someone must have helped her get there, because she could barely stand on her own. Gabriel, she said. Her voice cracked on my name. Please, I know I messed up. I know I said terrible things to you, but I'm not ready to die. I'm 20 years old. Please don't let me die. Tears were streaming down her face. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind I had gotten used to seeing from my parents. Just raw terror from a girl who had finally realized she was not invincible. I'm sorry, she continued. I'm so sorry for everything. For calling you spare parts. For drinking after you saved me. For taking everything you gave me for granted. If you do this again, I swear I'll be different. I'll never drink again. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I looked at my sister. At the yellow tint creeping into her eyes. At the way her hands were shaking. At the fear in her face that mirrored the fear I had felt 3 years earlier when they first asked me to do this. And I felt something crack inside me. I don't want to do this again, I whispered. I know, Sloan said. I know you don't, and you shouldn't have to. But I'm begging you, Gabriel. I'm begging you to give me one more chance. My mother was crying. My father was crying. Sloan was crying. Everyone in that room was crying except me. I had run out of tears years ago. If I do this, I said slowly, and you start drinking again, I'm done forever. I will never speak to you again. I will never help you again. You will be dead to me. Do you understand? Sloan nodded frantically. I understand. I promise. Never again. I looked at my parents. And you two have to actually hold her accountable this time. No more pretending you don't see it. No more blaming stress. If she so much as looks at a drink, you tell me. They nodded. They agreed to everything. They would have agreed to anything. 2 weeks later, I was back in the hospital. This time, the surgery was longer, more complicated. The doctor said my liver had regenerated well, but the tissue was different now. More fibrous, harder to work with. When I woke up, something was wrong. There was pain that was not supposed to be there. Monitors beeping faster than they should. A nurse rushing to my bedside and calling for a doctor. There's been a complication, the surgeon told my parents. I was still too foggy to understand what he was saying. Something about bleeding. Something about having to go back in. Something about touch and go for a few hours. I was in the ICU for 3 days. My mom stayed with me the whole time. At least, that was what she told me later. Mostly, I remember the pain, the fog, the terror of not knowing whether I was going to wake up every time I closed my eyes. When I was finally stable enough to move to a regular room, the surgeon came to talk to me alone. He waited until my parents went to the cafeteria. Then he pulled a chair up beside my bed and looked at me with eyes that were kind but serious. "Gabriel, I need to tell you something important," he said. "Your liver regenerated after the first donation, but not perfectly. There is significant scarring. The tissue is compromised in ways that made this surgery much more dangerous than it should have been." I nodded. I already knew something was wrong. I could feel it. "If you are ever asked to donate again, I need you to understand what that would mean," he said. He paused like he was choosing his next words very carefully. "A third donation would be extremely dangerous, potentially fatal. Your liver cannot sustain that kind of repeated trauma. Do you understand what I'm telling you?" I understood. I understood perfectly. "Do not let anyone pressure you into another donation," the surgeon continued. "Not your parents, not your sister, not anyone. Your life would be at serious risk." "Thank you for telling me," I said quietly. Then I asked him something. "Can you write that down for me, everything you just said? I want it on paper." He looked surprised, but he nodded. "Of course. I can give you a copy of my medical notes as well. The documentation of the complications. The prognosis for any future procedures." "I want all of it," I said. "Everything." He came back an hour later with a folder. Inside was his written statement about the risks of a third surgery, his medical notes from my file, documentation of every complication I had been through. He handed it to me like it was a lifeline, because it was. When my parents came back from the cafeteria, I watched their faces carefully. They were smiling, relaxed, relieved that Sloane was recovering well in her own room down the hall. "The doctor talked to me," I said, "about the complications, about what a third surgery would mean." My mother's smile flickered for just a second. "Let's not worry about that right now. Let's focus on getting both of you healthy." "He said it could kill me." "He said it could be dangerous," my father corrected. "Medicine advances all the time. What is risky today might be routine in a few years." "But if Sloane destroys this liver too?" "She won't," my mother said firmly. "She promised, and we promised to hold her accountable. This conversation is pointless." She patted my hand. "You're so brave, Gabriel. Your sister is so lucky to have you. Now get some rest." They did not hear a word I said. They did not care about the warning. They had already decided that my life was an acceptable trade for Sloane's comfort. But this time, I had proof. I had the doctor's warning in writing. I had my medical records. I had documentation they could not dismiss or rewrite or pretend did not exist. I just did not know when I would need to use it. Sloane was discharged a week before me. She came to my room before she left. She stood in the doorway looking healthy and strong while I lay in my hospital bed with tubes coming out of my arms. "Thank you," she said. "I mean it, Gabriel. I'm going to be different this time." "You better be," I said. "I will be, I promise." She left. I stayed in the hospital for 3 more weeks, dealing with complications that should not have happened. Infections, fluid buildup, pain that would not go away. When I finally got discharged, I went home and found out Sloane had thrown a party the weekend before. A big one. With alcohol. My parents said it was just her friends celebrating that she was okay. They said she did not drink anything herself. They said I was being paranoid and ungrateful, and I needed to stop looking for reasons to be angry. I went to my room, locked the door, and did not come out for 2 days. That night, I started keeping records. Every time I saw Sloane drink, I wrote it down. Dates, times, what she was drinking, how much. I took photos on my phone when she was not looking. I saved screenshots of her posts from bars and parties. I kept the doctor's folder in a locked drawer where no one could find it. I collected evidence like a detective building a case because I knew this was not over. I knew they would come for me again. And when they did, I was going to be ready. 4 more years passed. I turned 21. Sloane turned 24. In those 4 years, I did everything I could to build a life away from my family. I got into a state school on a partial scholarship and worked 2 jobs to cover the rest. I majored in accounting because it was practical, and because the idea of being financially independent from my parents felt like freedom. I kept my distance. I came home for Christmas and maybe one other holiday each year. I called my parents once a week and kept every conversation short. Sloane and I barely spoke. I did not trust her, and she knew it. Every time I saw her, I watched for signs. Bloodshot eyes, shaky hands, the smell of alcohol on her breath. Sometimes I found them, sometimes I did not, but I always looked, and I always documented. 4 years of evidence sat in a folder on my laptop, backed up in 3 different places. Photos, Screenshots, dates, times. A timeline of every broken promise my sister had made while my parents looked the other way. The doctor's warning from the hospital was laminated and stored in a fireproof safe I bought with my own money. I knew exactly what I was building. I just needed the right moment to use it. My parents had told the extended family a completely different story from the one I had lived. According to them, Sloan had one health scare 7 years earlier and recovered beautifully. One surgery, one donation, one miraculous recovery. They never mentioned the second surgery. They never mentioned the complications. They never mentioned that their son almost died on an operating table at 17. They rewrote history, and I was the only one who knew the truth. But I was done being the only one. Then the invitation came. Sloan's 24th birthday party. A big celebration at my parents' house. The whole extended family would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins I had not seen in years. Sloan's new boyfriend would be there too. Elliot. She had been dating him for 6 months. According to my mother, he was the one. He came from money. He had a good job. He thought Sloan hung the moon. He had no idea who he was really dating. Everyone would be gathering to celebrate the miracle girl who had survived one liver failure. My first instinct was to say no. I had finals coming up. I had work. I had 100 excuses ready. But then I saw the guest list, and I realized something. Every person my parents had lied to would be in one room. My grandparents, who had given me a college fund that got stolen. My aunts and uncles, who had only heard the sanitized version. My Aunt Diane, the surgeon who had been working overseas for 5 years and had no idea there had ever been a second surgery at all. And Elliot, Sloan's boyfriend, who thought he was dating a responsible adult instead of an addict who had almost killed her brother twice. This was my moment. This was the audience I had been waiting for. I called Aunt Diane 2 weeks before the party. "Gabriel," she said when she answered, "is everything okay?" "I need to ask you something," I said. "How much do you know about Sloan's liver problems?" There was silence on the other end. "I know she had a health scare when she was 17, Diane said slowly. "Your mother said you donated liver tissue to save her. She said it was a one-time thing and everyone recovered beautifully." "That's not the whole story," I said. "There was a second surgery when I was 17. The complications almost killed me, and the doctor told me a third donation would be fatal. I have it in writing." "What?" "Mom and Dad have been lying to everyone for 7 years. I have proof, medical records, photos, a timeline of every time Sloan has been drinking. Everything." Diane was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm done being the family secret at Sloan's birthday party. I'm going to show everyone the truth. I'm going to show them the scars. I'm going to show them the evidence. And I'm going to make sure everyone in that room knows exactly what Mom and Dad have been hiding." "Gabriel, that is going to cause a huge scene." "Good," I said. "I want a huge scene. I want everyone to see." Another pause. Then Diane's voice came back different, harder. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to be there. I need a surgeon in the room who can confirm that what I'm saying is medically accurate. I need someone with authority to back me up when Mom and Dad try to minimize everything." "I'll be there," Diane said. "But Gabriel, you are the one who has to do this. You are the one who has to stand up and tell them. I can confirm the facts, but this is your story. You have to be the one to tell it." "I know," I said. "I've been waiting 7 years to tell it." We made a plan. The party was on a Saturday in late April. I drove up the night before and stayed in my childhood bedroom. The same room that still had wrestling posters on the walls and a row of medals hanging off the closet door. Remnants of a dream that had died on an operating table 7 years earlier. I barely slept. I went over everything in my head. The folder with all my evidence was already in my car. The photos on my phone were organized by date. The laminated copy of the doctor's warning was in my jacket. The speech I had been rehearsing for weeks was burned into my mind. This time, I was in control. The morning of the party, I helped my mom set up decorations. Balloons. Streamers. A giant banner that said, "Happy 24th birthday, Sloan." She chatted about the caterer and the playlist, and how excited everyone was to see Sloan doing so well. "She's really turned her life around," my mother said while arranging flowers. "She has been so responsible, so mature. I'm so proud of her." I nodded and kept hanging streamers. I thought about the photos on my phone from the month before. Sloan at a bar with her friends. Sloan doing shots at a club. Sloan so drunk she could barely stand. Responsible, mature. Right. "She's been talking about Elliot proposing," my mother continued. "Can you imagine Sloan getting married? He is such a nice young man, comes from a good family. They're going to have beautiful children." I thought about Elliot, about how he had no idea what he was walking into, about how my parents had probably already fed him the one surgery version, about how he would find out the truth tonight, along with everyone else. "That's great, Mom," I said. I'm happy for her. Guests started arriving around 3. Aunts and uncles I barely recognized. Cousins who had grown up since I last saw them. And Elliot, Sloane's boyfriend, in a crisp button-down with a smile that said he thought he had won the lottery with my sister. Everyone hugged and laughed and told stories about Sloane, the golden child, the miracle girl, the one who survived against all odds. Nobody mentioned how she survived. Nobody mentioned the 2 surgeries. Nobody mentioned me. I drifted to the corner of the living room and stayed there. Diane arrived around 4 o'clock. She hugged my parents, made small talk with the relatives, and eventually made her way over to me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "I'm ready." "When?" "During Dad's toast. He always makes a big speech about how proud he is of Sloane. That's when I do it." Diane nodded. "I'll be right here." I watched Sloane work the room. She was good at it, charming everyone, making them laugh, letting them admire her. Elliot was glued to her side, looking at her like she was some kind of hero. She accepted compliments and congratulations like she deserved them, like she had done something impressive just by staying alive. She was also drinking. Not wine. Whiskey. Glass after glass from the bar my parents had set up in the corner. I watched her refill 3 times in the first hour. Nobody else seemed to notice. Or maybe they noticed and did not care. I pulled out my phone and took a photo discreetly. Just another piece of evidence. One more nail in the coffin. When her glass was empty again, she caught my eye across the room and smiled. She raised her glass in a mock toast. Then she mouthed the words, "Cheers, little brother." After that, she turned back to Elliot and laughed at something he said. My father clinked his glass with a fork. The room went quiet. This was it. "If I could have everyone's attention," Dad said with a big smile, "I'd like to make a toast to the woman of the hour, my daughter, my miracle." He launched into his speech. The same speech he gave every year. How proud he was of Sloane. How much she had overcome. How the whole family had rallied around her during her health scare 7 years ago. "We almost lost her," Dad said, his voice cracking with rehearsed emotion. "But thanks to modern medicine and the love of this family, she pulled through. And look at her now, healthy, happy, about to start a beautiful life with this wonderful young man." He gestured at Elliot, who smiled and squeezed Sloane's hand. "So raise your glasses to Sloane, my daughter, my hero, the strongest person I know." I stepped forward. "I have something to add." The room went quiet. Every head turned toward me. My father's smile froze on his face. "Gabriel," my mother said sharply. "Not now." "Yes," I said, "now." I walked to the center of the room. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. Dad forgot to mention something in his toast. He forgot to mention that Sloane didn't pull through because of modern medicine. She pulled through because of me. I looked around at all the confused faces. My grandparents, my aunts and uncles, Elliot, staring at me with wide eyes. I donated part of my liver to save Sloane when I was 14 years old. Dad mentioned that. What he didn't mention is that I did it again when I was 17. 2 surgeries, 2 donations, 2 pieces of my body that I gave my sister so she could live. Murmurs rippled through the room. My grandmother put her hand over her heart. 2 surgeries? Uncle Greg asked. "We only heard about 1. That's because Mom and Dad lied to you." Sloane stepped forward. Her face was flushed from the whiskey, but her voice was steady, controlled. The charm was still there. It was just pointed in a different direction now. "Okay, hold on," she said, lifting her hands like she was calming a crowd. "Let's not blow this out of proportion. Yes, there were 2 surgeries, but the second one was minor, a small complication from the first procedure. It wasn't some big dramatic thing." She looked around the room with a practiced smile. "My brother has always been a little dramatic. You all know how he gets. Remember how he used to cry about missing wrestling practice? Same energy." A few relatives chuckled nervously. I could see it happening. They wanted to believe her. They wanted this to be a misunderstanding instead of a catastrophe. "Show them then," I said. Then I lifted my shirt. Not all the way. Just enough to show the scars. 2 of them, running across my abdomen in parallel lines that no minor procedure would ever leave. The room went silent. "Does that look minor to you?" I turned slowly so everyone could see. My grandmother gasped. Uncle Greg's wife covered her mouth. Elliot's face went pale. Sloane's smile flickered. "Scars always look worse than they are," she said. "The doctor said he healed perfectly. The doctor said I almost died. I let my shirt fall back down. I was in the ICU for 3 days. I had infections for months afterward, and the surgeon told me that if I ever donated again, it would kill me." "That's an exaggeration," Sloane said quickly. "Medicine advances all the time. What was risky then might be routine now. He's being dramatic to get attention." I pulled out my phone and walked over to my grandmother. I showed her the photo I had taken in the hospital when I was 17. the one of me in the ICU with tubes coming out of my arms. This is what dramatic looks like, apparently, I said. I handed her my phone. Scroll through. There's more. She scrolled. Her face went white. Then she passed the phone to my grandfather. He looked at the photos, then looked at my parents with an expression I had never seen from him before. Disgust. You told us it was one surgery, he said to my father. You told us he was fine. He was fine, Dad started. He recovered. I was in the ICU for 3 days. I cut in. I had infections that lasted for months. I still have pain where the scars are. And the whole time I was recovering, Sloan was back to drinking. She threw a party the week I got out of the hospital. Sloan laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, here we go, she said. Now I'm the villain because I had some friends over? Because I tried to move on with my life instead of wallowing? You almost killed me, and then you threw a party. I didn't almost kill you. A medical complication almost killed you. There's a difference. A complication from the surgery. I had to save your life. A surgery you agreed to, she said. Nobody forced you. You could have said no. The words hung in the air. I felt something cold settle in my chest because she actually believed that. She actually believed I had a choice. I was 17 years old, I said. Mom told me I would never be welcome in this family again if I refused. What choice did I have? There's always a choice, Sloan said. You made yours. Don't blame me because you regret it now. Elliot stepped forward. His face was confused, like he was trying to piece together what he was hearing. Sloan, he said, you told me you had one surgery years ago. You said it was a wake-up call and you changed everything. I did change, Sloan said. She turned to him with that charming smile. Babe, you know me. You've seen how I live. I'm healthy. I'm responsible. This is just family drama. My brother has always been jealous of the attention I got growing up. Jealous? I stared at her. You think I'm jealous? Why else would you do this? She said. Ruin my birthday? Embarrass me in front of everyone? You've always resented that Mom and Dad cared about me more. This is just payback. I pulled up another photo on my phone. Sloan at a bar 3 weeks earlier, doing shots with her friends. This is from 3 weeks ago. I swiped to the next one. This is from last month. I swiped again. This is from Valentine's Day. You were so drunk you could barely stand. I walked over to Elliot and showed him the screen. I have 4 years of photos, dates, times, and locations. Every time I saw her drinking, I documented it. This is the woman you think changed. Elliot stared at the photos. His hands were shaking. Sloan, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Tell me he's lying. She did not answer. Sloan, look at me. Tell me these photos are fake. They're out of context, she said. But her voice had lost its charm. It was thin now, desperate. Those were special occasions. I wasn't really drinking. It was social. Everyone does it. You told me you didn't drink at all, Elliot said. You told me you learned your lesson. You told me your brother donated once and you never touched alcohol again. I didn't think it mattered. It's not like I'm an alcoholic. I can stop whenever I want. Then why didn't you? Elliot asked. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's complicated. Elliot's face changed. I watched something drain out of it and get replaced by something cold and final. He looked at her for a long second. Then he asked the only question that mattered. Were you going to let your brother die so you could keep drinking? The room went dead silent. Sloan's mouth opened. That's not. I would never. Were you ever going to tell me the truth about any of it? Sloan's face crumpled. The charm was gone now. The confidence was gone. She looked like what she actually was. A scared girl who had been coddled her entire life and never learned how to face a single consequence. I was going to tell you eventually, she said. I just wanted you to love me first. I wanted you to see who I really am before all this stuff got in the way. This stuff is who you really are, Sloan, Elliot said. This is exactly who you are. Elliot reached up and took off the watch he was wearing. The one I had heard her brag about giving him for Christmas. He set it on the table beside the cake. I'm done. Elliot, wait, please, I love you. You don't love anyone, he said. You use people until they're empty, and then you find someone new to drain. Then he looked at me. I'm sorry for what you've been through. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. And then he walked out. Sloan started to follow him, but I stepped in front of her. Let him go. Move. No. I said move. She grabbed my arsam hard. Hard enough to hurt. Diane was there in a second. Take your hand off him. Sloan let go. She looked around the room wildly, searching for someone to take her side. Her friends, who had been celebrating with her earlier, were edging toward the door. Our cousins would not meet her eyes. Even Mom and Dad stood frozen, not moving to defend her. This isn't fair, Sloan said. Her voice cracked. I made mistakes, but I'm trying. I'm getting better. You can't just ruin my life because you're angry. You ruined my life 7 years ago, I said. You called me spare parts. You said Mom and Dad only had me so I could save you. You treated my body like a supply closet you could raid whenever you needed something. I was young. I was stupid. People change. You haven't changed, I said. You're still drinking. You're still lying. The only thing that changed is that now everyone knows. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the laminated document. The doctor's warning from 7 years earlier. This is a letter from my surgeon after the second donation, I said. It says a third surgery would be extremely dangerous, potentially fatal. My liver cannot sustain that kind of repeated trauma. I walked over to my parents and held it up in front of their faces. You read this letter. The doctor gave you a copy. You knew that asking me to donate again would kill me. And last month when Sloan told you her liver was starting to fail again, what did you do? My mother's face went gray. You started hinting that I should be there for her. You started talking about how family means sacrifice. You started laying the groundwork to ask me to die so Sloan could keep drinking. That's not what we were doing, Dad said weakly. Yes, it was. I'm not stupid. I've watched you do this twice already. I know exactly how you operate. I looked at my grandmother. The woman who had given me a college fund that my parents had stolen? They took the money you gave me for college, I said. Did you know that? They used my college fund to pay Sloan's medical bills. They kept her fund intact while they emptied mine. Grandma's face went hard. You took his money? We had to make difficult choices, my mother said. The bills were... Sloan's fund was twice the size of his, Grandma said. I know because I set them both up. You could have split it. You could have asked us for help. Instead, you took everything from your son and gave it to your daughter. She stood up. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was strong. I've heard enough. She walked over to me and put her hands on my face. I'm so sorry, Gabriel. I'm so sorry. I didn't see what was happening. It's not your fault, Grandma. They lied to everyone. She turned to face my parents. You will never see another penny from me, either of you. That money I was going to leave you in my will, it's going to Gabriel now. All of it. Mom, be reasonable, my father started. I am being reasonable, she said. I'm being more reasonable than you deserve. Then she looked at Sloan, who was standing alone in the middle of the room. Elliot was gone. Her friends had slipped out while no one was watching. Everyone who had been celebrating her 10 minutes earlier was now looking at her like she was a stranger. And you, Grandma said, you had 2 chances. 2. Your brother gave you 2 pieces of his body, and you thanked him by drinking yourself back to death. If your liver fails again, you will wait on the list like everyone else. And maybe while you're waiting, you will finally learn what it feels like to not have someone sacrifice everything to save you. Sloan made one last desperate attempt. She turned to our parents with tears streaming down her face. Mom, Dad, tell them this isn't true. Tell them Gabriel is exaggerating. Tell them I'm not as bad as he's making me sound. My mother looked at her. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at the floor. She did not say anything. Dad? My father's mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. Sloan stood there in the silence, waiting for her parents to save her the way they always had. Waiting for someone to take her side. Waiting for someone to make excuses for her. Waiting for someone to sacrifice something so she did not have to face a consequence. No one moved. You're really going to let him do this? Her voice was high and thin now. You're going to let him destroy our family? I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm just finally telling the truth. I walked toward the door. Diane followed me. Wait, Sloan said. Her voice was desperate now. Gabriel, please. What if my liver fails again? What if I need... Then you'll die. I stopped at the door and looked back at her. Or you'll wait on the transplant list like everyone else who needs an organ. You'll wait months or years while your body shuts down. You'll learn what it feels like to be powerless, to be dependent on someone else's mercy. Then I looked at my parents. And you'll learn what it feels like to watch your child suffer and not be able to sacrifice someone else to fix it. My mother was crying. My father was staring at the floor. Sloan was standing alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by relatives who would not meet her eyes, abandoned by the boyfriend who had finally seen who she really was. Goodbye, I said, and I walked out. Sloan's liver failed 3 months later. She is still on the transplant list. Elliot never came back. Her friends stopped calling. My grandparents cut my parents off completely. I live near Aunt Diane now, and I have not seen the rest of my family since that night.